Hi, lovely. Welcome to this podcast. I am so excited to finally be launching and creating a space where we can really just, have these raw, authentic, deep conversations on psychology, on spirituality, on movement, on healing, on self-discovery, on transformation and literally everything in between. I'm really excited to be creating this space and have these open discussions where we can really reflect and really focus on our inner journeys as we self-discover, as we find our most authentic selves, so we can really start living life from a place of authenticity and in alignment with ourselves, always making sure that we are nurturing our mental emotional well-being, which is the industry that I'm in, right? So I'm super excited to share personal stories and experiences of all of these years of personal and professional growth in this space of mental and emotional well-being, on healing, on transformation, on self-discovery. And I will also be sharing case studies of my therapy sessions, of the experiences that I've been gathering in this field. And so welcome to this space. And well, let's start with why now? Why am I launching this now? And to be fully honest with you, I actually was recording episodes already in 2018, 2019, I believe it was, with the idea to launch a podcast and start spreading the message and start already creating this space where I could have longer format content and reach out to more people and have these conversations of, blending psychology with spirituality and yoga and movement and all of this somatic work. But I never launched. And it's crazy because I already had a couple of solo episodes recorded. I even interviewed like 6 to 8 guest experts. They were awesome conversations. And then I never launched. And, it kind of made me really sad and frustrated. It didn't launch, not because the messaging wasn't right or because there wasn't value in it. It was actually quite nice. But it was more to do with the self-doubt and with the fears and, of not it being perfect, right? I have this part of me that always feels that it's not good enough or that it's not perfect enough or that I could do it a little bit better. And this eventually keeps me in doubt and in inaction, and then I don't end up launching stuff. But it goes beyond this, and this is probably the first topic that I want to talk about in this podcast, and I will start with this, right, which is our identity. Because based on our self-concept, based on what we think of who we are and should be, we start making certain decisions, we start living life in a certain way that not necessarily resonates with our core, with our authentic being, right? And so this identity really influences, well, me not launching that podcast all those years ago, but it influences our career choices, our job choices, who we are hanging out with, our relationships, our partners, right? It really has to do with self-concept. And so, going a little bit back in time, when we are children, that is when we start creating that sense of self, of who we need to be accepted, to be loved and protected by our caregivers, to be part of society, to be part of the collective, to be belonging in a tribe, right? And so we start filtering things that we've been taught or we're experiencing, and there's part of our essence that is kind of left in the shadow, right? And so it's as simple as receiving certain commands and comments from your parents, who are your initial caregivers, that already start shaping this identity for you, right? So comments like, Don't be so loud. Keep your tone of voice low and quiet, and don't bother others, and don't be so spontaneous, and be decent, and this is right and this is not right, and you shouldn't be doing this and you should be doing that. All these kind of comments start shaping your truth of who you should be and this identity, which we then refer to ego, right? Our ego is that identity that we've kind of picked up for ourselves and that we nurture and feed over and over again, just reaffirming that this is who we are. So, for example, in my personal experience, when it comes to identity, I actually had a big identity crisis when I was younger because I was born and raised in Barcelona, Spain, but come from Indian origin. So my both parents are Indian. I was brought up with Indian culture and tradition. And then plus I went to an international school with international children from all around the world. And so this was very confusing because it kind of felt like I belonged everywhere and nowhere at the same time, and really confused of what do I actually follow, or what do I resonate with most, and who am I really, where, kind of like, where do I belong, or who should I be to fit in all these different surroundings. And eventually you end up listening more to what's being brought to you in your home, right? And for me, this was more like this Indian culture and traditions, and I was told who I should be when I'm around this Indian community and who I can be when I'm with my international friends. It was a big identity crisis, which eventually led me to, just hold on to different identities of who I had to be. And, all these years of personal development and self-discovery, I ended up figuring out what my essence is, right? And kind of blending in all of my experiences. What most resonated with me is what I keep, and the rest is gone. But when I was younger, there was such a big confusion. And adding on to this identity of me being that good girl, that decent girl, based on all the comments I received from parents, family, at school, the way that my friends treated me, I ended up creating this identity of me being that good girl, of me being that Barbie girl who was quite shy and timid and wasn't really able to, speak out loud and share what she really thought about things and give her opinions. It was more the contrary, right? I was just accepting of what other people thought and suggested. I was always available for what my friends wanted to do. I was making sure that I was never saying anything that was rude or that people could, think that I am not a decent girl. I was basically following the rules and following what was expected from me. And this is how I lived for many, many years, right? And the more I lived this way, and the more I nurtured this identity, this ego self, the more disconnected I actually was from my authentic self, right? And I thought I had to be this decent girl, which meant to, be a good student, have the perfect boyfriend, keep myself low and making sure I'm not scandalous, that I'm not making a scene out of things, that I'm not arguing with my friends, that I'm not being rude to anyone, that I'm polite, that I'm always smiling, that I'm always looking nice, right? And so slowly you start creating some sort of self-imposed rules and norms that are aligned with this identity. And you keep feeding this identity and you start making it more yours. You start owning this identity. And for many years, eventually it helped me. It gave me some direction in life. It gave me a sense of being. It gave me a sense of orientation. It gave me some structure, right? And I knew that if I was following these rules and these norms and this stereotype and these behaviors, then I would be accepted, that people will, not judge me, or they would, because this is who I am for them, and then everything is fine, right? And the moment that I kind of stepped outside and did something a little bit different, there were already negative comments like, oh, look at this character. Oh, you're speaking too much now, or you're responding too much now, or oh, look at this attitude that you have here, or this is not normal in you, or are you okay, right? So people already start creating as well expectations of who you should be. And it's kind of like you, yourself, your parents, your caregivers, your friends, everyone starts reaffirming this identity of yours. Now, the problem comes later in life, right? When you're a little bit older and you're more aware and you've maybe even be working on yourself, you start to feel that all these decisions you're making, all this being of yours doesn't really resonate with you. You're not fulfilled. You don't feel happy. You feel still disconnected from yourself. And at least in my case, when the turn point was that I started feeling very anxious about every little single thing that I did or said, every little decision, every little interaction with friends or whoever, every little thing I had to be doing in life, there was so much doubt and confusion because I was doing things based on this identity and not on how I actually felt about things. So I was completely disconnected from my essence, from my body, from my emotions, from my inner thoughts. I was just doing things that would look good and were right for this persona that I built for myself, right? And so this was very confusing because I always had these thoughts of, if I say this, will it be right for this image of me? And if I make this decision, is it accurate and aligned with this identity of me? And everything was like this, right? And so this created a lot of confusion, a big disconnection with myself, and eventually a lot of misunderstandings with friends and situations in life, and me just making decisions that were not really aligned with me. And so this goes beyond launching that podcast, right? It goes way beyond this because the reasons that I didn't launch that podcast was because of the fear of judgment. How would others see me now? And if I start sharing my message, the way that I think, my life perspectives, my opinions, woo, this is exposing myself way too much. How will people see me then? How will people accept this version of me? This identity thing also influenced many other decisions, right? And now I think, how far could have I gotten, or what are all the things I would have done if I would have just allowed myself to connect with my essence, what I really felt and what I really wanted in that moment, really had listened to my body, my intuition, that gut feeling, and just gone for those things instead of doubting so much and concerned so much about this identity of who I am and what others expect of me and what is right and what is wrong, based on something that I created. And something that I have learned along the way is that our identities can evolve, but we have such a big fear of letting go. Fear of letting go of what's familiar, of what we have picked up as our truth. What happens when you grow out of this identity? There are actually like two problems, right? The first problem is, well, who am I without this identity? Right? So when I started working on myself and I started reflecting and journaling and I started understanding, like, wow, I'm actually so disconnected from myself. I have no idea who I am. I have no idea what I actually like, what I don't like, what I think about certain concepts of life, like what success means to me, what freedom means to me, what stability means to me, what kind of lifestyle I want to live, what are my values. When I started to reflect on all of these things and kind of start my self-discovery journey, there was a moment where I understood that I created this identity, that I picked up this persona of me being that decent Barbie girl, and I've been nurturing it, I've been feeding it, and it has protected me all these years, but I don't resonate with her anymore, or some aspects of it. So it left me in this empty space. Like, if I am no longer this, then who on earth am I? And you're kind of hanging on in this empty space, which feels so scary and terrifying because we need to hold on to something, right? We need that structure, that orientation, that sense of being. And for some time, well, I didn't have that. That was very scary. And the second problem here is the fear of judgments of change, right? So eventually you judging yourself, but also the fear of how are others going to perceive and welcome me changing? the evolution, the evolving of my identity, right? Are people going to accept this new version of myself? Are people going to like that I am now sharing my message, my opinions, doing things in a different way, speaking out loud, and just doing things that they don't expect from me, or that image that they have of me? Is this going to be well accepted? Is this going to be right? Do I have to fight again for my belonging and my survival and in community, right? So there's these two fundamental things, which is one, me hanging in this empty space and kind of rediscovering myself and accepting the most authentic parts of me today, and then the fear of judgment of others, and kind of like welcoming change for yourself, right? We all know that change is the only constant thing. We're constantly evolving. Everything is always evolving. And if you just have a look around at the water in a river, it's the same water, but it's constantly like evolving, it's moving, right? It's changing, it's shifting. Just like us, right? I don't dress the same today as how I dressed 2 years ago. I'm evolving. The way that I communicate, the people that I'm surrounded by, the things that I need more of in my life, all of these things are constantly changing. So I really think it comes down to giving ourselves permission to evolve and to change, and to really, listen to our bodies, to our emotions, this natural way that we have of growing and evolving, and being very accepting and compassionate of that, right? I actually invite you to take some moment and ask yourself these 3 questions that I have written down here, right? The first one is, are you holding on to an identity that you no longer resonate with, that no longer fits? And the second question is, what beliefs about yourself did you inherit that you never actively chose, right? So sometimes, like I said earlier, people impose who you should be and what's right for you in life, right? Sometimes there are things that you don't choose. So maybe let's say that you were quite spontaneous and creative kid, and you were constantly put down and told not to be spontaneous, not to be loud, not to be so creative, and just follow the structure and follow the simple and follow what other kids are doing. And you kind of accepted that, but that's not you. That's not what you resonate with, right? You have this fire in you that wants to be spontaneous, that wants to be creative in whatever ways and forms, and wants to discover and self-express through art, through movement, through painting, through I don't know, singing, and you want to explore this. Then what parts of you have you not chosen and that you would like to choose now? And the last question is, well, what would happen if you let go of who you should be and allowed yourself to step into who you truly are? Guys, I want to leave you with these questions. You can reflect on them, you can journal about them, but really try to think about how your identity, what you've thought as your truth of who you should be, has influenced you in your decisions, in your career, in your jobs, in your relationships, and life in general. Because at least for me, it really conditioned me. It kept me stuck for a very long time. And when I fully allowed myself and gave myself permission to welcome change, to step into the unknown versions of myself, to really allow myself to rediscover myself every 5 minutes if I needed that, has really helped me also show myself more authentically, show parts of me that I wouldn't dare to show in the past. And for example, now launch this podcast with the blend of my uniqueness, with the blend of psychology in the way that I understand psychology, to blend it with yoga and spirituality, which are a big part of my life, blended with, feminine work and shadow work and inner child work and adventure and travel and all of these things that make me be me, and that the way that I perceive life and the way that I support others. And exposing this and making it visible without that fear of, ooh, this doesn't fit my identity and this is not what people think of me and this is not what is expected from me, is just awesome, right? It gives such a big relief, and it gives a permission to just live more fully, authentically, and kind of like in wholeness, right? So I invite you to do this exercise, and I will see you in the next episode. Ciao, ciao.